Hey everyone. So I do not like Mike Pompeo. So Mike Pompeo is the current Secretary of State, and he has never met a war he did not like. He supports being more hawkish towards Iran. He is a perfect example of why I believe that this whole like Donald Trump is like a in the pocket of Putin or whatever. He's a perfect example of why that's not true because Donald Trump picked Mike Pompeo for his Secretary of State, and Mike Pompeo wants us to be extremely hawkish towards Russia. So he is a very, very war oriented person. He's pro torture, just not the best guy in the world to put it lightly. And now he is doing a little bit of propaganda, some anti-China propaganda. But what is really funny about this clip is that he is pretty lazy with his propaganda and contradicts himself in the middle of talking. So let's take a look at it.
Thing that gives you high confidence that it originated in that Wuhan lab?
Or that there's enormous evidence that that's where this began. We've said from the beginning that this was a virus that originated in Wuhan, China. We took a lot of grief for that from the outset, but I think the whole world can see now. Remember, China has a history of infecting the world, and they have a history of running substandard laboratories. These are not the first times that we've had a world exposed to viruses as a result of failures in a Chinese lab. And so while the intelligence committee continues to do its work, they should continue to do that and verify so that we are certain. I can tell you that there is a significant amount of evidence that this came from that laboratory in Wuhan.
Do you believe it was man-made or genetically modified?
Look, the best experts so far seem to think it was man-made. I have no reason to disbelieve that at this point.
Your Office of the DNI says the scientific consensus was not man-made or genetically modified.
That's right. I agree with that. Yeah, I've seen their analysis. I've seen the summary that you saw that was released publicly. I have no reason to doubt that that is accurate at this point.
Okay, so just to be clear, you do not think it was man-made or genetically modified?
I've seen what the intelligence committee has said. I have no reason to believe that they've got it wrong.
So that was pretty funny right there. You got even if you like Mike Pompeo for some weird reason, you got to admit that was hard to watch. That was sloppy right there. Because how are you going to say, oh, the best experts in the world, they say it came from a lab. And then props to that interviewer for bringing that up and saying like, well, your people, these are his people she's referring to. They say it was not man-made. He's like, yeah, of course. That's what I just said. It wasn't man-made. I wish that, I don't know what happens in the rest of this interview. I've only seen this clip. And I so hope that she pushed back on, so like what you said before, like that just wasn't true or what? Because he just contradicts himself. He's like, oh, it was made in a lab, and then he goes, oh, just kidding, it wasn't. And I'm sure he looked like visibly frustrated right there. I think that there was obviously some miscommunication. But that's sloppy. That is sloppy right there. And so we got to remember where is all this anti-China rhetoric? Why is it all popping up? So one of the reasons that I think it's popping up is that the Trump administration, I don't believe, has handled the coronavirus very well whatsoever. They reacted slowly. Once they did react, they didn't react in the best way. I don't think that this administration has handled this pandemic very well. And an easy way to kind of get off the hook for not handling things very well is to blame China. And I'm not saying that China is like fully absolved of any blame. China did lie about the virus early on. They lied about what the effects of the virus looked like it was going to be. But to be fair, the Trump administration also was not completely upfront with how severe this virus was originally. A lot of people, there's articles from the Washington Post, New York Times, many major news outlets downplayed how serious this was. I think that most people did not think this was very serious. I remember going way back in like December, Tulsi Gabbard was like the only person talking about it, and it felt weird that she was like the only person. It's like, why is she talking about this so much? Like, she was talking about it way before everyone else was, at least as far as the Democratic presidential candidates. She ended up being pretty right about it being an issue. But it's fair to say that pretty much everyone was slow to the gun on this one. Everyone was slow to the gun. That's not an excuse. I think that, if you're in a position of leadership, you should lead. It's kind of in the word. You should lead if you are in charge. But So anyway, so just by saying that China, by lying and reacting slowly, that's not like the China isn't unique in that. The U.S. also did that. And there's people that are going to get upset at me for saying that, but I mean, it's it's true though. It is true. Like we have to realize what we're saying when we're saying it, and when we say it, like, oh, China lied and China reacted slowly. The U.S. also did do that, and like people don't usually like that framing because China good, U.S. bad. That's how people like to think about things. But these issues have nuance, and I don't even disagree with the idea of moving more of our manufacturing back to the U.S. I actually think that that would be really, really good for our economy. I think that we should try to manufacture more things in the U.S., especially when we can have better control of the labor that is going into these things. I mean, when we globalize and we like have things made in so many other countries, I mean, the working conditions of some of these people that have to make things for us are just horrible. And I just think it would be overall better for our economy if we made things here in the U.S. But what they're doing with China is, one, they're trying to scapegoat, and two, I think there is some geopolitical maneuvering that is happening where they're like, let's take this opportunity to maybe gain some ground with China, maybe get some people, start testing the waters and to start becoming a little more antagonistic towards China. And I really hope that this isn't moving us more towards some sort of Cold War with China. I mean, some people would argue that we're already in somewhat of a Cold War with China. It's hard to say. I mean, there's no like technical definitions of these things, but I mean, I pray that it doesn't get to a hot war. I have a hard time believing that it will, just because I don't think that China wants that. I really like to think that the people in the U.S., this is more of a flex, that they don't actually want military action against China. But you're going to see, I mean, you're seeing right now senators from the U.S., talking about how, oh, we're just never going to pay back China for like the debt that we owe them, or like, oh, they're going to need to pay. Like we're going to make sure that they are held accountable for this. And there is some language being used that like makes things look like we're going to start being more antagonistic towards China. And then you have Joe Biden, who's supposed to be on the left, but he's not on the left, who instead of saying like, hey, these guys are trying to scapegoat China for what a terrible job they did, instead he's like, oh, no. I'm going to be tougher on China than these guys. These guys say they'll be tough on China. I'm going to be even tougher. It's like, no, gosh, Joe Biden, no. Don't say that. That's not what we want. We don't need you to be more antagonistic towards China. We need you to say that it's not China's fault what's happening here. Like, yes, the virus originated in China. That's like not China's fault that why we handled it so poorly, because other countries have handled it better than we have. And so like it's not an excuse to say, oh, it started in China and like so that's why we need to be antagonistic towards China. No, we need to be like the stimulus package that was passed by Congress was horrible. And if Joe Biden was any semblance of a progressive, he would have been talking every single day how we need more. We need more for the actual people. We need less for corporations. I mean, the stimulus package was absolutely ridiculous. And hopefully they're drafting a better one right now. I know that Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders recently kind of worked on a little bit of legislation that was pretty optimistic in terms of what the next stimulus package would look like. But that's good because we want, because I mean, with a Republican-led Senate, you want to like go to the table asking for a lot. That way, even if you have to make concessions, you still come out of it with something that's pretty good. And I looked at what they wrote, and it was really good. It was one of those things where like if they got that passed, I was like, wow, it's pretty good. And that's because they know that they're not going to get everything that's playing good politics. And so hopefully we see more of that. But just Joe Biden trying to outmaneuver Donald Trump in just a horrible way. Like, I'll just be more antagonistic towards China. Like, people don't want a war with China. Like, we people don't want us to like be antagonistic with China. That's not what people want. Right now, people are afraid. People are scared. And like some of this like antagonistic language towards China might be kind of appealing, but if we can relieve the economic hardships that these people are facing, they're not going to need to blame China. They're just going to be like, oh, all right, this was a pandemic, it was rough, but like we're going to get through this. You know what I mean? That's what we need. Not to just blame China for things that we could be handling better. And so this is Mike Pompeo being sloppy, being lazy. I'll never miss an opportunity to make fun of Mike Pompeo a little bit because I really disagree with so much of what he believes. And so, a little bit of fun of him, just saying one thing, being directly contradicted by his own people. That's always fun. But, if you guys disagree with anything I said in this video, please leave a comment down below. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.